Hello there, and welcome back to the Education System Reboot channel. This should be short. I just wanted to kind of reflect on a thought about what we wear as teachers, and the idea of dressing for success. I think, at least growing up, I always heard that phrase. Dress for the job you want, not the job you have. Dress for success, etc. And again, I pause for a moment just because I realize, again, we live in a day and age where, we want everyone to feel comfortable themselves, et cetera, et cetera. But I think we have to always acknowledge that if we need to feel comfortable, but you have to also understand that, whatever we choose to do, however we choose to dress, is going to be a reflection on us. Okay. Whether that's fair or not, again, that's a debate for another time. But when I think about success and the standard at which we would want our students to be held, I think that dressing up. So as a man or as a guy, I think at a minimum a tie. Obviously, I've made a few videos where I didn't have a tie in them. That's probably a weekend thing, but I always had a button-up shirt. The idea is I've just always been trained, or I don't know the right word. I mean, I remember no one said you better wear this. I knew that what I wore reflected on me. And so for my entire teaching career, aside from limited times where maybe there was something I was doing physically or something that was a little, just not conducive to wearing a tie, I made a choice, a conscious effort to always wear a tie, a button-up shirt and a tie. I would probably, if I could invest the money regularly, I'd probably buy some nice suits. I do have some suits, but again, I go back to that's probably not as practical, given as a music teacher, I'm waving my arms all the time. It's like, so I'm finding that happy medium. But anyway, I guess I just want to say, if you really think about our culture or cultures in general, like anything that we want to elevate, there is an elevated standard of how we dress. That's just a fact. And if we, yeah, so I hope I've just made that clear. So this is my point. I would encourage any teacher that kind of says to themselves, I want to do a better job, or I want to grow, or I want my students to do better. I think dressing up professionally, right? Professionally sends a clear message that you are here for them to do the best job possible. Now, somebody would argue that, well, that's not relatable to them. Well, you know what? I would argue back and forth and said, well, it might not be relatable, but it's also a standard we want to strive for. Let's just say I've heard this argument. It's like, well, that doesn't represent what they see at home. Okay, fine. Why don't we show them this other thing, right? Because we're all different. But in the corporate world, in the real world, like how you dress is a sign of respect for the job. And like I said, this one probably comes across a little preachy. Just to be clear, this is just my personal preference, personal opinion, but I do think it's such a small thing to send the clearest message, which again, the whole point of this channel is to kind of reboot the education system. And if you look at any older movie, that portrayed teachers, they always wore a tie. They always looked presentable. There was always a professional attire. And over time, that has slowly eroded away. And to me, that's a simple, clear thing that we could probably do, an instant thing we could do. Now, let me just a side note, maybe for administrators and stuff. Obviously, you have to decide the culture you want at your school, at your district, whatever. And I get it. I've seen both sides. I've seen the idea is like, we want it to be comfortable for you. They use that word. And so most people would choose to be as comfortable as possible. And I don't know, again, I know even if I say this, I'm backpedaling in the sense that I just, I know people would be resistant to it, but I just would think that I would hope that you would just search a little deeper in your heart and just realize that, if I use this term lightly, if the president of the United States, don't think Trump, don't think it, just that office, right, wasn't wearing a suit and tie on camera, you wouldn't think he's taking it seriously, right? It represents the sense that you are here to do what's right. And again, I think a culture of a school or a district where every person is dressed up like that is going to send a powerful message to kids and powerful message to students or to parents and powerful message to everyone that we take our job seriously and we want kids to take it seriously. And I'll kind of pause there and say you could take that to another level, and you could think about dress codes, and you could think about uniforms and all that stuff. I mean, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now. And then just a little side note: let's say an administrator saw this and they're like, I would like to create a culture of excellence, a culture that that just by looking at our teachers, you see that that just by the way they dress, they're serious about what they're doing. I would also say too, then, if you wanted to implement something like that, of course, administrators, you would most likely need to create a stipend for your teachers to help them buy that, because that is the one thing. I mean, you can't expect teachers to purchase stuff if that's not what they're comfortable with. And I don't know, just a little side note, because one of the things I try to do through these videos is I try to kind of think through a lot of different variables, sometimes in real time like this, just, what would you have to think if we did this, what would that mean? And so it's this constant, mind game of figuring out solutions and then potential problems. And then if there's a potential problem, is there a solution, but ultimately getting to this one specific goal is to just make the education system a great system again, right? Create an actual system. So anyway, for what it's worth, if you've watched this whole thing, I would just recommend that we dress nice. And so, yeah, there we go. I'll leave it at that. And just always remember, consistent effort over time equals success. Have a great day, evening, whatever, for whenever you're watching this. Bye, guys.